So it's not a legal schooling. I know you're sensitive to people schooling you on the law, but I think I can trump you when it comes to the history of Grenada.
What you're saying is that this resignation was expected? Would it be fair to say that you abdicated your responsibility by not showing up in Parliament on Friday?
We are not aware of the terms of the agreement.
But then how can you say the terms are not fair? You don't know the terms.
We love old talk, we love gossip, we love brango, we love all them kind of things in the Caribbean.
If I cannot play music, I don't know how I'm going to live.
We are borrowing money to pay debt because of corruption, waste, and mismanagement.
That they have difficulty with your leadership. Why then are you contesting the presidency?
Since losing that seat, what have you been up to?
Now, Mr. Attorney General, this particular provision sounds unconstitutional, but why were there not consultations before moving forward with the proposals? Did they say what will happen when you guys get to St. Vincent? Because there are pressing social economic issues that I would want to address with you.
In the hyper-information age of social media, the Bubb Report knows there is more to the story. We have questions and demand answers. We strive to hold the powerful accountable and tell an unbiased, contextual story. You know what happened. We let you know why it happened. There is always more to the story. The Bubb Report, streaming every Sunday at 11 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube.
Independent Media presents Grenada's only source for independent, unbiased, and well-researched broadcast journalism. This is the Bubb Report with Dr. Kelon Bubb.
Hello and welcome to the January 23rd edition of the Bubb Report. Last week, the new National Party in Grenada formally elected the new caretaker candidate for the constituency of St. George Northeast, formerly led by notable Grenadian politicians George Brizan from 1984 to 1999, Unison Whiteman of the New Jewel Movement from 1976 to 1979, and Nazim Burke from 2003 to 2013. The caretaker candidate Nimrod Oliveira will be competing in a constituency now occupied by the incumbent MP Tobias Clement, who is also the one-man leader of the opposition in the Grenada Parliament. This week on the report, we kick off the first in the series of interviews we will be conducting with caretaker candidates of the two main political parties in Grenada, and we will discuss the issues that Oliveira will be bringing to the fore as the representative of his party to what was once considered an NDC safe seat.
My life has pretty much been an open book. There's not much that I keep secret. So I think, people don't have to go far to look to see who is Nimrod Oliveira. And so when things come out that's not true, I might not even have to say anything. People that knows me and understands me would defend that.
Also on the report, we discuss the current state of play with respect to the political dynamics on the ground in the country. In his last hand-picked media availability, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell, when quizzed about his intention to call a snap election, opined that he has no intention to call such an election, on the grounds that the opposition party might not be prepared, adding that he doesn't want to take advantage of an unprepared NDC.
This is Barbados. We are not aware. My friend and colleagues have not told me why she called the election 18 months ahead of time. And therefore, Grenada will make its own decision in what it considers its best interests, and so on. And I just want to add this. There are those who are saying the opposition is disorganized and blah, 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 and you should call it now. That means we should take advantage of the opposition. I don't share that. An election is called for improvement for the people of the country, not just for a political party to get advantage over the next one. And in any event, you had 14 out of 15 seats. You had all 15, and somebody left. One person left. You can't get more than 15. So if you're talking about political advantage, what's the point?
With respect to the state of play in the NDC, allegations made in the latest editions of the New Today are suggesting serious tensions in the camp as the party attempts to revamp itself as a viable and competitive alternative in the next election and beyond. Late last year, the deputy political leader Adrian Thomas stepped aside as the caretaker candidate for his home constituency. Also, a voice note was widely circulated in early January, purported to be from a member of the St. Andrew Northwest Constituency branch, which pointed to tensions between two potential caretaker candidates for that constituency.
The room was set up. You had a posse stand last night, and that posse stand was put in place. Most of the people in that posse stand was from a particular village. And you all campaigned and you all walked to that villages and them so often, day in, day out. So could you imagine if when that vote for candidacy come about and you're not the one to represent St. Andrews Northwest, you're setting the next person up for failure. You're setting the next person for a fall.
We welcome our guests, NNP caretaker candidate Nimrod Oliveira, political strategist William Joseph, and former agriculture minister, leader of the opposition, and member of parliament for St. Andrews Southwest, Michael Batiste. We thank you for joining us. A pleasant good morning to our viewers and listeners, and we welcome you to yet another episode of the Bubb Report for 2022. Now, last week, Grenada marked some very important milestones in its history. It was on January 16th, 1943, that the Pearls Airport in the rural St. Andrew Parish was first opened to commercial traffic. It was also on that date that passengers on the Greenleaf commuter bus tragically lost their lives to a boulder in the Cotomele area of the St. John's Parish. It was also on January 18th that the new National Party won the first round of 15 seats in the Grenadian Parliament after the late Dr. Raphael Fletcher quit the cabinet and crossed the floor. Most notably and tragically, it was also the date that Maurice Bishop's father, the late Rupert Bishop, lost his life in a series of mass anti-independence demonstrations mounted against the Gary regime. There were also other points of significant note, including the famous Lord Brownlow trial and subsequent resistance protests led by members of the St. David-based Jewel organization that was eventually formed into the New Jewel movement, as well as the birth of the great Grenadian-born Trinidad and Tobago trade unionist Tubal Buzz Butler at Blugger Cottage in the town of St. George, and the death of Lord Melody on January 19th, 1990. Lord Melody, of course, is best known for his role as a Calypsonian and for starting Grenada's first Calypso tent, the Review, in 1969, after having won several Calypso monarchs a few years earlier. I wish to thank sincerely the Grenadian Voice newspaper and the Now Grenada publication for making a conscious effort of retelling our country's history in this way. Kudos must also be given to Grenada's We Culture team of Reese, Livingston, Godfrey, and Finley Jeffrey the Scholar for keeping folklore, history, and culture alive every Friday night. Now, in order to comprehend why things are the way they are in its present form, whether technology, political systems, or music, we must understand how they began and evolved into what they are today. It is quite unfortunate, however, that Grenadian history is not taught as systematically as it should be in our public school systems. The average student in high school seems to have a greater appreciation for TikTok stars than they do of our rich and interesting history. That is why the work of the Grenada National Reparations Commission is so critical. It has as one of its remits education, and we trust that the Commission will be able to revamp how our history is taught in schools. Aside from preventing us from repeating the mistakes of the past, knowing history also provides a sense of empowerment to the learner. If a person studies her ancestry, it will provide him or her with a great deal of helpful information that may assist them in forming an identity of their own. Shall we say, a unique Grenadian identity. And at this point, I wish to welcome my first guest to this program, Mr. Nimrod Oliveira, who was recently elected as the caretaker candidate for the incumbent New National Party in the St. George Northeast Constituency, a seat that is currently held by the leader of the opposition, the Honorable Tobias Clement, himself a former member of the ruling NNP. Now, just as a programming note, we are endeavoring to have a series of Meet the Caretaker candidates here on the Bubb Report. And certainly, Mr. Nimrod, I wish to welcome you to the program.
Morning, Dr. Bubb. Thank you. Morning to your listeners and viewers. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And congratulations to you, sir. Now, Mr. Nimrod, I would start by asking a very pointed question. Why the NNP? Why do you feel the need? Why was there a need to join the NNP as opposed to the other alternatives that we have in Grenada?
Well, for one, to begin, I'm a long-standing member of the New National Party. I was, involved with the party and the party support group in New York. And I believe in what the NNP is doing in order to take Grenada forward. I commend what the NNP government has done over the years, and I think it's the right party for Grenada to take us to continue taking us forward.
Okay, now you will be contesting the next election. I suspect you the caretaker candidates normally are the presumptive candidates for the elections. What are some of the issues in St. George Northeast that you will be bringing to the fore, that you will be talking to people about in the constituency?
So it is twofold. While I have some ideas of some of the things that I would love to see improve in the constituency, part of my undertaking now is actually to listening to the constituents and the residents, listening to what are their needs and their concerns, and seeing how best I can assist in and getting the necessary resources to make it better and help it improve. Because I can go in, I can have all these grand ideas and says, look, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But what if it does not meet the needs of the constituents? So my thing now is to listen. I want to listen. I'm going door to door, listening and asking everybody what you would like to see as being improved. We have the blanketed ideas of improvement in sports and education and all of that. But all of that is good, but you still have to listen to the people that lives in the community, because they're daily in that the stuff affect them daily. So I want to help improve their quality of life. So
right. So you're saying that you really want to listen to the people first before articulating a position, but you must have some ideas of your own with respect to what you want to see the constituency look like.
Well, of course. Like I said, I want to embark on a robust education drive, help improve the lives of young people so that we can get them engaged in meaningful and sustainable jobs, right? In terms of infrastructure, there's while there's a lot going on in terms of road and stuff like that, I still believe that there's a lot more. So there's some projects that I would love to see get done that would help ease the hardships that some of the residents face. In the sporting industry, yes, there was a new playing field that was done in like the Willis area, but I do believe there's 2 or 3 other areas that does need more proper sporting facilities, because as we know, sports does add to the upliftment and the development of young people. So there are a couple major projects that I would love to undertake to get sporting facilities done in some of the areas.
Now let us talk about the incumbent member of parliament who you would be presumably competing against. That's the Honorable Tobias Clement, who himself was a member of the New National Party before crossing the floor. Now, I know that you are new to the constituency, but I'm sure you said you were part of the support group, which means that you probably had your eyes and ears peeled to the ground in that constituency. What would you say about the representation of the current MP of the constituency?
Well, I don't have much to say. Like I said, we were both members of the New National Party when he was a member of the New National Party. As part of the support group in New York, we would have done what we have to do to support, Brother Tobias and to make sure that the NNP was victorious in St. George's Northeast. But in terms of a personal thing, he made his choice to move on, and that's his personal choice. So I don't think it's fitting in my place to even comment on a choice that he made.
Yeah, it's not about the choice that he makes, but I'm sure you can make an assessment. And it's not about him personally, but an assessment of the representation in that constituency.
That is not for me to say. That will have to be between him and current constituents and those that he would have represented it. But because we are endeavoring more or less for the same thing, I don't even think it's right for me to even comment on that.
In other words, you guys are competing for the same seat there. So
well, I wouldn't see it as competing. I made a commitment to serve the people of St. George's Northeast, and I am doing what I have to do to make sure that they are properly served and that they are properly represented. God help me that we move on to the next general election, and I'm successful in that regard. Yeah.
Now, Mr. Nimrod, you lived in New York, and you served as a member of the New York Police Department. Tell us, why did you get into the NYPD, and what lessons would you take with you from your service with the NYPD into service into Grenada?
So prior to the NYPD, I was in the military. I did 2 years active military. I actually went in for 4 years active, and I was supposed to do 4 years reserve. My contract got revised when I was in boot camp because I realized the military was such a oversized organization that I didn't feel I was serving to the best of my ability. I was not contributing enough the way I wanted to in terms of helping people directly. So I got out of active service after 2 years, but I remained in the reserve. Subsequently, after getting out after active service, I joined the NYPD, and the biggest undertaking, there's a cop that got killed two nights ago in Harlem. I'm sure you probably saw it on the news.
Yes.
And so one of the things I shared it on my profile, the letter that he wrote, why he wanted to be a police officer. And I read it, and it was so similar to the one that I wrote in 1997 when I was going into the police academy. Once you're in the academy, they ask you, and you have to write in 2 paragraphs. And for me, it was service, right? It was service. I wanted to help people. It was 1997. We were coming out. You're familiar with the Crown Heights riot and all of that. And I will be the first to tell you. Being a police officer, being a cop, was the furthest thing from my mind. And I actually was a salesman in an electronics store on Flatbush Avenue. And there was an off-duty cop there, Caucasian guy that, brought me the application. And he says, you will make a great police officer. And my exact words is, I don't want to be no cop. And he was like, I see you every day in the store. You help people, the way you treat people, and we need. He goes, this is a white guy telling me that. He said NYPD needs people like you that will take care of your own. And that there was where it got started. And I filled out the application, and the rest is history, and it's the best thing. One of the things I was blessed coming out from the academy in 1997, I went to the 71st precinct. And I know you know Brooklyn, the 71st precinct is located in Crown Heights, which is in
Crown Heights, yeah.
Right, which is a West Indian Jewish neighborhood. So I was blessed to be in a West Indian neighborhood, being able to help my people. And not just Grenadian, West Indians. And at the same time, I had to deal with, so maybe politics was in my system long, because now you had to deal with the politics of dealing with the Jewish people.
Especially in Crown Heights,
right.
In that neighborhood, you're talking about with the Jewish community and the West Indian community, and those tensions that arose from the Crown Heights riots before that. So please proceed.
Right. So I was blessed in that regard, and at a very young age, 1997, we were still dealing with the crack epidemic. We were dealing with dysfunctional families, dysfunctional homes, and like I said, the politics with others. Because Crown Heights is basically you got West Indian Jews, Hispanics. It's so I was blessed being able to work in that neighborhood. And you and I both know, when you work in such organizations or neighborhood that's so diverse, it's hard to please everybody, right? Because somebody at some point in time is going to be unhappy. But being able to find a balance and to work along with people, and that stayed with me for my whole 25 years in the NYPD. So I think you had a second part of the question. Why?
Yes. What would you be transferring? What particular skills from the NYPD, from your experience in the military as well, that you think would be transferable to this new path that you're carving with respect to politics in Grenada?
Well, I have had, I did have had formal education, formal training. I have numerous training with the military, with NYPD, but I think there's nothing that works more for me, or that I laud more than my ability to work with people and to service people. Serving people and taking care of people has been my lifeline. I enjoy doing it, and that's what I intend to do. Continue serving people, continue being there for a person. Look, I tell people in the constituency, if you go ahead and you go ahead and you elect me, and I become your representative, I intend to be your representative, and I expect for you to hold me accountable, because it's not about me, it's not about Nimrod Oliveira. I'm putting it there that I want to serve you, and I should serve you, and you deserve the best. I should serve you to the best of my ability, so you should be holding me accountable. And
all right.
One of the things that I went through, so there's two of, I had several great assignments in NYPD, and persons would have recognized stuff in me that I probably didn't even know I had. But two of my assignments that stay with me, it's I in the 71st precinct, I was the truancy officer, and that assignment allowed me to see, because I was kind of fresh, just coming from Grenada, and we really didn't have those type of problems in Grenada. Look, your parents tell you to do something, you do it. You shut up and you do it. But being in the big world and seeing that there were different dynamics in the family structure, being a truancy officer get me to realize some of the dysfunctions, and it allowed me to work closely with kids. And to this day, I would have grown guys meet me in the street and they would say, "Thank you, officer." And I'd be like, "For what? Where I know you from?" "Oh man, when I was 14, 15 years, I was on a rampage, and you came home and you talked to me and you talked to my mom, and you would get off work in the evening and you would pick me up and go to a game or something, So those are the things that I continue I cherish and I want to continue those kind of things in serving the community.
Okay, now let us segue two final questions, and then what we want to do is to get to some viewer comments. Viewers and listeners, please share the program. The next question has to do with the support group. Now, I know that one of your predecessors in the support group in New York, who then came back as well to Grenada to serve in the politics, was Elvin Nimrod. So you have a kind of similar trajectory there, Elvin Nimrod being Nimrod, right, being part of the support group doing that. But I want to, in terms of the support group, how instrumental was the support group in helping you to decide to go back into Grenada and get involved in the politics at this level, at least?
Well, the support group is always. I think
somebody's calling you. Let's just you go ahead. Go ahead. Yes.
The support group is always instrumental in stuff regarding me. I wouldn't say that they were the decision to really come back and serve in that capacity was mine. Obviously, it's a lot involved. It's a big sacrifice, right? It's a big sacrifice. Having a young family and having to make that decision to come back just now. There are other stuff which I had, other decisions which I had to make, but they were very instrumental in supporting me in what I wanted to do, right? There was absolutely no qualms as to what or where I will be living once I retired, right? I could have retired at age 45 in 2015, and I chose to work an extra 5 years because my wife was saying I was too young to retire. And so I worked an extra 5 years and retired at age 50 in 2020. But I know where I was going to be. And I did know that I wanted to continue serving. I didn't quite figure out exactly in which capacity yet, but I know it was supposed to be in service. And I people might think it's a joke. If I was asked, Nimrod, go to Grand Mall Beach and count the grain of sand, and I believe that was going to help the NNP take the country forward, that's what I would have done.
Counting grains of sand, that's an interesting analogy. But Mr. Nimrod, let us talk about the dynamics in your own political organization. What are your thoughts on succession in the party? With respect to Dr. Mitchell is saying that this may be his last campaign. I think the jury is still out on that. But what direction would you want to see the party go in the event that whenever Dr. Mitchell decides to demit his role as political leader of the organization?
So I saw your interview with Kalistra, I believe, on that. So I know what your views are. That's a debate that I don't even undertake. Look, I believe strongly that individuals should know when it's their time. It's not for you or I, right? And I believe the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell have served Grenada honorably, and he had done great things for this nation, and he would know, and only him would know when is his time. In regards to succession, I think, look, there's always, in any organization you are, there is always talk of succession and stuff. So it's amazing when people that's on the outside of the organization tend to say that, well, there's no succession plan. But how do you know there's no succession plan? Are you sitting at executives meeting? Are you there? I mean, I know we have a tendency and we feel that we are entitled, but I think whatever is the organization, whatever is NNP succession plan, is not something that needs to be debated in the public sphere. That's for the organization and the group. So it's always an interesting dialogue when a person say, well, there's no plans. Well, how you know there's no plans? So that's my take on it. I am quite sure when Dr. the Right Honorable decides it's time for him to retire, the NNP would be in good hands. The NNP would be in good hands.
Okay. Well, I was hoping that you answered the second part of that question, which you're confident that the organization would be in good hands when Dr. Mitchell leaves.
Whenever that time comes, absolutely, the NNP would be in good hands.
Okay. Would you throw your hat into the ring for leadership, or is that
Well,
too early to
right
make
now,
a call on that?
Right now, I'm a caretaker that's trying to get on the slate to be elected.
Yeah.
So, look, I enjoy running as chubby as I might be. I enjoy running, but for me, I always enjoyed distance running from, which came from the military. So you might be able to beat me in a sprint, but I could do a 10
Not
miles.
in a marathon. Okay.
Exactly. So in other words, sometimes we got to creep before we walk.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let's get to some viewer comments, Mr. Oliveira. A lot of the questions are coming in. Viewers, I do apologize if I don't get to any of them. But let's see here. Jose Ernesto is saying, Mr. Nimrod, we heard all about all the corruption in the NNP administration and other shrimp farm, fowl farm, and others, including allegedly here. I'm saying allegedly for a very important reason. Why would you like to associate yourself with such an organization? I guess the viewer is asking, why would you associate yourself with an organization that has been accused of corruption?
Well, listen, in everything we do, there's always going to be talk and there's going to be accusations. Look, I came through two organizations, the military and NYPD, where it's cheap or anybody can say anything. What are the actions? You're hearing about accusations, and if there's accusations and there's valid accusations, how come no one has ever been in the administration has ever been prosecuted? Why? So you can't make a decision just based on hearsay, because where's the proof? Where's the evidence? It's very easy for me to say this, right? We can all say, and especially in the world of social media now, any one of us could make something and put on Twitter, I guess, or Facebook or YouTube. But again, where is the proof?
All right.
Let's
get to another. Roland Penny, I believe he's a constituent in St. George Northeast. He's saying New Hampshire is the Wall Street of St. George's Northeast now. The NNP office is moved there also. To win the seat, you must win Willis. I wonder why all this development centered around Willis. I don't know that you can answer that, but I believe he's forming an opinion here of dynamics that are taking place in the constituency. You want to give a shot at that?
Well, I would venture to say, I mean, I'm with you. I can't really follow, but if what he's saying is true, then why wouldn't you want to be in Willis? Maybe he's talking. It's maybe the most populous area. And then to figure, in order to win, you have to win. Yeah, so you would definitely want to do some work in the area to ensure that people sees what the government is doing. Because remember, the government is asking persons to let me continue what I'm doing. So if you out there putting a resume out, you got to make sure that the resume is the best possible resume, no?
Okay, all right. Let's get to another comment. Akim Lewis is saying nothing he wants to win the Northeast, but Willis, one of the biggest voting populations of the Northeast, he didn't go there on a regular basis. But is Vendome is where the heart is? Okay, I'm not following that comment. I'm sorry, brother. I'm just not following.
Just to answer that
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
So I can read it. They're basically saying that I don't go to Willis and I spend a lot of time in Vendome. Vendome is where my heart is. I don't even know what would allude them to say that, but in the whole of the Northeast, and so you hear, because everybody, the Northeast is very big, it's very dynamic, so and everybody wants you to be there. But one of the most areas I could say hands down since I came back and decided to get involved, one of the areas in the Northeast that I spend the most time is Willis, because obviously there's an office there, there's an NNP support office there, so that's where I was. And as a matter of fact, up until yesterday, I was in Willis. Last week I was in Willis, like in 3 different areas. I went to a funeral there, I went to a meeting there, and the guys on the block had a birthday party. I was there. Yesterday evening I drove up to Back Street, with Pilot and those guys and hang out there for like 2 hours. So again, I don't even know, why the person would say my heart is in Wyndham. If I'm putting my resume for the St. George's Northeast, I can't single-handedly pick one area. I have to be all over, and that's what I intend to do.
Okay. All right. Now, I believe we have a viewer question here. I'm missing it. There's a lot of comments coming in. But
you're a busy man today.
Yeah, very, very. But there's a question of citizenship, your American citizenship. If you were, in fact, American citizen, I don't know. But I think the viewer was asking whether or not you rescinded your U.S. citizenship in order to return to Grenada.
So earlier on, when we were speaking, I alluded to a lot of sacrifices, right? I think you probably recall that. And yes, that's one of the. It was a tough decision, but that's one of the decisions that I had to make because, again, I am saying I am looking towards being the parliamentary representative, and to sit in the Parliament of Grenada, you cannot hold citizenship to another country. So as we speak right now, Dr. Kellen Bob and your listening audience, I'm a citizen of the United States of Grenada. And
a citizen of the United States of Grenada.
Carrico and Petit Matnik. Yes. Carrico and Petit Matnik. Yes, my Carrico roots wouldn't forgive me for saying that. And my PO.
Yes.
So even to look, I have a young 2-year-old and 4 months old baby right now in the United States with my beautiful wife. And God forbid, if something is to happen to him, I can't even go to the US right now because I don't even have a US visa.
Okay. All right. So you are in it for the long haul there.
Oh,
all right.
Absolutely. It's not, a matter of guessing or you're going to do this. And no, I made a commitment to serve and I'm in it 150%.
Okay. All right. Mr. Nimrod, we have to quickly get to the final segment, but I want to give you an opportunity to offer some closing comments to our viewers and listeners.
So, well, I want to say, Nimrod Oliveira, and I'm here. I'm elated to be chosen as the caretaker for the new national party in St. George's Northeast. I have an open door policy in terms of being accessible. So anyone, whether you support me, you don't support me, you live in the constituency, you have some concern, some advice, my phone number is there. I have a brochure out there. My phone number is it. It's a working phone number. It's a valid phone number, and you can call me. I have friends in all walks of life, and I pride myself in being a good listener. I certainly do not know it all, and I want to be engaging. I want the community, the constituency, to work together with me so that we can help improve livelihood and lives in the community. And like I said previously, I want to take St. George's Northeast to the sphere where other parliamentary reps looking at us as a role model and asking how did we get to do it. But I know the only way that I'll get to do it is by working collectively with the residents of the constituency. Let me also take this time also to thank you, Dr. Bubb, for reaching out to me and giving me the opportunity to, as your first guest, as you say in the new segment.
In the new series, yes.
I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Well, I trust that you would let your political leader know that you did enjoy coming on the Bubb Report. Because we have been trying to get an interview with your political leader, right. But we have been blackballed on several occasions. But I trust that you would send that message. The door is open for him to come on the Bubb Report.
I will most certainly convey your message to the press secretary, and I'm sure you will get something from them.
Well, let's see how that plays out, sir. But Mr. Nimrod, thank you again. We will be watching this space as independent and neutral observers of the political process in Grenada, and we certainly wish you all the best in your new political endeavors.
Thank you, Dr. Bubb. And I think I owe you a congratulations, because the last time we may have spoken face to face, we may not have been. Doctor, I think he was still in the process of fishing.
Yes, I was.
So let me also take the opportunity to congratulate you and continue to be an inspiration for young people.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And we will get quickly to the next segment. I know you just came from church, so I know that you have that's part of the deal, right? With the politics, kissing babies, going to church, going to funerals,
Well,
things like
listen,
that. So.
I grew up in the church, right? Even though I used to do all these big parties, and so I grew up in the Pentecostal church, having to walk from Grand Mall to Market Hill Pentecostal Church for the first 18 years or so for my life. So I never forget that. And I'll share something with you. Even today, so even when I was in the military in the Middle East in 2006, I spent a year in the Middle East. I have a Bible that I wake up every morning and I would read a scripture from the Bible, and I would reflect on it and write it down. So I went to the US in 1989. I started that tradition in 1990. So I have notebooks upon notebooks from 1990 where I track all the scriptures that I read. So I'm sure by now I probably read the Bible maybe 2 or 3 times back and forth, because I just open it up randomly. I don't go in order. I would just open up randomly, and wherever I'm blessed that day, that's what I read. That's what I reflect on. So you didn't know that little tidbit about me, because you said.
I trust that the constituents in St. George Northeast are learning a lot about you. So this will be good in helping voters to make an informed decision when the bell is rung in the pocket of your political leader. So, Mr. Nimrod, thank you again, and you have a wonderful Sunday, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having
me. All right, viewers and listeners, stand by. We will be right back with our panel segment of the week.
This is the Bubb Report with Dr. Kellon Bubb.
The decision you make will determine what happens, whether we continue along the road to progress, prosperity, stability, or whether we go back to the years of turmoil and chaos.
Voters had a chance to try again during the March election, but there was not a lot to choose from. It was a poll without issues or much fanfare. For the most part, it was also an election without personalities. 5 political parties, a record number, fielded candidates. But there was a feeling that no one had the vision to turn things round, and even if they did, they lacked the power to do so. Caribbean voters, fearing indecisive government, often opt for a single strong leader. But Grenadians have had their fill of that too. Among the new parties and offshoots of old ones was one that was familiar. It was thought and feared that the Grenada United Labour Party could be returned to power. Led by a blind and eccentric former dictator, Sir Eric Gairy, the party was amongst the most popular, despite Sir Eric's reported obsession with flying saucers. Yet at the polls, there was no clear victor, and the country was thrown into a state of uncertainty. There's talk now of forming a coalition government and attempting to rescue Grenada again, to try and save it from slipping into the kind of obscurity suffered by its Caribbean neighbors. It now appears the barrier to a grand 4-party coalition is not politics, but personal dislikes. Grenada has several would-be leaders, but voters have given the crown to none, and it's hard to imagine things changing in the future.
We are looking for a better life in this country. That's what we need.
I'm sorry about that coughing there, but ladies and viewers and listeners, that was Associated Press footage from 1990, and we decided to go into the archives today, and we're very grateful to the Associated Press for this footage because what it showed the election campaign that was held in Grenada in 1990, where no single party won a majority of the seats. But the NDC was able to form the government in a coalition arrangement, if you will. And it was at that time that you had the National Party, which formed as a result of the fallout between Dr. Keith Mitchell and Herbert Blaise back in 1989, when Dr. Mitchell assumed the leadership of the new National Party. You had the National Party. Of course, you had the Grenada United Labour Party. Our next, one of our guests here who will be coming on next was a member and still is a member of the Grenada United Labour Party. So I'm sure he would appreciate that particular history, seeing his former political leader, Sir Eric Matthew Gary, in that clip. But at this point, I wish to welcome this morning my two guests here, sparring partners, if you will. That's Mr. William Joseph. Mr. William Joseph, welcome. If you can adjust the height of your camera, because there you go, very well. As well as the Honorable Michael Batiste, former Minister of Agriculture, leader of the opposition, and former Member of Parliament for the St. Andrews South West constituency. Now, as a programming note, we were also expected to be joined by the Honorable Tillman Thomas, but unfortunately he had to cancel, citing some personal issues. So we wish Mr. Thomas well, and the invitation is open for him to appear on the Bubb Report at any time. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Pleasant morning to everyone, and let me hasten to say Happy New Year to everyone, and it's nice again to see my dear brother, someone I love very much, Willie Joseph, coming on the program today.
Absolutely. Now, Mr. Batiste, I would start with you. Now, you essentially critiqued the National Democratic Congress last week. You are chiding them for being woefully ill-prepared for the next general election. As I understand it, you are on the ground in Grenada. So tell us, if you will, just unpack what you meant by the notion that they're ill-prepared. As far as I understand it, they are in the process of selecting candidates for the next election. So what was the basis of that observation that you made?
Well, you know, politics is about perception. And obviously, it appears as if the National Democratic Congress are still bickering among themselves as to whether they have to stay with the new or whether they should go back to the old. And but moreover, you have a leader who is unknown, a leader who has taken over the ranks of the party, one who no one knew of or heard of. So except he's been hailed as someone who won some big cases, I must indeed say some things trouble me greatly with the way he's going about meeting the people and trying to sell himself and the National Democratic Congress. Now, over the years in our political history, you would have political parties. You would know who the leader, the deputy leader, and you know the players. With elections right around the corner, one can't say that they know who the players are. And to say that the National Democratic Congress is in a position where they could win the next gen election, I think that would be wishful thinking. Grenadians, by and large, would like to know who the representatives are going to be. You have to be familiar with the representatives. You have to be familiar with the leader. And the leader himself have a lot of questions that are unanswered questions, and I'm sure that we would go into some of them over the years. But I want to go back a little bit with what the previous guest, Brother Nimrod, he was here and he gave his reasons why he threw his hat in the ring, and I was sort of disappointed because Grenada have sunk into poverty. Grenada is facing a crisis at the moment. We face a double crisis. Number one, a pandemic brought along with it economic challenges. We see now high inflation, cost of living skyrocketing out of control, and neither parties are actually addressing those core and critical issues. Now, as far as the NNP is in power. They have the machinery. They can gloss over some of the problems with electioneering, quick fix, and so on. A party wishing to topple the NNP, they have to have a message that can resonate with the ordinary people on the street. And so far, I'm not seeing that happening. There are some critical issues that have to be addressed. The issues of WRB, the issues of high electricity rates, the issue of cost of living. We are facing a time now as a result of the pandemic. Freight has quadrupled, and as such, it makes the cost of basic commodity goods a lot more expensive for ordinary people. Most of the working class, at least the people on the bottom of the economic ladder, they feel in the brunt of that pressure. Government is not making any attempt to deal with that problem. You have people working for $600 a month, between $600 and $1,000 a month. By the time they pay the electric bill, the NAWASA and all of that, the cost of living, they have nothing left, and that is in a crisis. And I'm yet to hear the two major parties addressing the issues of poverty. How do we get people out of poverty? We have we have low morale in working force. We have a question of pension and gratuity. Workers are frustrated. They do not know at the time whether they would be retiring into poverty. The state of the pension is still uncertain. So those are some of the issues that I would like to see ventilated. And of course, I, as a member of the Grenada United Labour Party, the GLP would lend its voice in discussing some of these issues, because I believe they need articulating. Since 1985, two political parties have run Grenada, NNP and NDC, and over the years we exchange NNP for NDC in 1990, and again we exchange NNP for NDC in 1990. But the problem remained: the problem of the rural economy, the problem of youth unemployment, problem of youth underemployment. Those are issues that we have to sit and discuss in a serious way. We have to find ways and means that we can get people on the bottom of the ladder out from the situation that they're in. And
Yeah,
so
Mr. Batiste, but I would push back there. You know, the NDC leader who appeared on this platform, those are some of the issues that he also articulated. So I think you guys are singing from the same hymn sheet. But let me bring in your sparring partner here, William Joseph. William, Mr. Batiste doesn't seem to think that the NDC under its new leader is getting its act together fast enough. And I think part of the subtext of that conversation has to do with what we saw unfold in the constituency of St. David, where some in the party felt disaffected by the unceremonious removal of the deputy political leader as the caretaker for that constituency. And we recently, as you saw at the top of the program, there was some rumblings in the St. Andrews Northwest constituency. The New Today reported on these issues extensively. So would you agree with Mr. Batiste's perception that the party needs to get its act together quickly? William, you need to unmute. I'm not hearing you there. I don't know. All right. William might have to log if you can. Let's see. Can you hear us, William? You might need to get a microphone there. I don't know if somebody, I don't know what's happening there. You might have to log out because we can't hear. Can you speak again, William? Yeah, we can't hear you, sir. So you might have to log off and log back in. I'll have my producer reach out to you, okay? So just bear with us there. Gentlemen, just bear with us. Viewers and listeners, please bear with us. We're having some issues with Mr. Joseph's audio there. But let's get to some comments here. Change is coming. Change has arrived. Mr. White Suit GULP has 15 candidates, and they are in your back pocket because we need to see them. I'm not following there. Let's see. NNP and GULP need to drink water and mind their business. Let's see. Brian is saying, same old players. You're stuck in the past, Mr. Batiste. Folks like you are part of the problem. Zero forward thinking. Let's see. Now, Janice is asking a question here. Mr. Batiste, what exactly do you mean when you state no one knows the NDC leader? Can you elaborate on that for us, please?
Well, for the last 25 years, we had 8 general elections. We had 2 referendums, 2 hurricanes, the death of course, white man assaulting a black man in Fort Judy. A lot of major events. I've never heard him on a call-in program. We never heard him state his position on anything. All we know is that he was a lawyer representing WRB. And of course, that too needs ventilation because WRB has become a problem. It's an issue that neither party really want to discuss. And we have to discuss WRB because the people of Grenada got shortchanged there. On one hand, Dr. Mitchell is saying $63 million had to pass through WRB lawyers, but of course, we know that is not so because the money that passed into WRB lawyers, the lawyers representing Grenada in a losing effort, that was not included. And we have seen now that the cost of electricity have skyrocketed and the 2 parties are dancing around each other without actually talking to the Grenadian people about that serious issue. So it's a question that have to be asked. No one knows him. I think that is a fair question. He have not been involved in politics, but what we do know, he was the lawyer representing WRB. We know that he's involved in the CBI program because he said his lawyer is not involved, but he has interest in a company that is selling passports. I think the Grenadian people have to know the name of the company. We need to know the depth of his involvement in that, what the benefits were, and so on. Because when you're vying to be prime minister, nobody knows you. You cannot come and muddy the waters. You have to bring in. You have to come and filter it.
Yes, Mr. Batiste, just pause. Let's see if we can hear William. William, can you speak there? We still can't hear you. So what we might have to do, sir, is that we might have to have you come in on WhatsApp. I think that would be so. If you call me on WhatsApp, William, then I think that would solve our problems. Call me on the phone, and then we will pipe you in through the audio that way. Because your voice is valuable today. But viewers and listeners, please keep your comments coming. All right, there is William calling now. All right, William.
Yes, good morning.
Yes. Let's do this here. Hold on. Give me 1 second. All right, William. So go ahead. I needed to respond to what Mr. Batiste was saying.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks a lot for your patience. Agree that leading up to that in fact the NDC as a party.
Okay, folks, we'd have. I'm sorry, we have to take a quick break here. We're still having some technical difficulties. Stand by. We'll be right back.
So it's not a legal schooling. I know you're sensitive to people schooling you on the law, but I think I can trump you when it comes to the history of Grenada.
What you're saying is that this resignation was expected? Would it be fair to say that you abdicated your responsibility by not showing up in Parliament on Friday?
We are not aware of the terms of the agreement.
But then how can you say the terms are not favorable? You don't know the terms.
You know, we love old talk, we love gossip, we love brango, we love all them kind of things in the Caribbean.
If I cannot play music, I don't know how I'm gonna live.
We are borrowing money to pay debt because of corruption, waste, and mismanagement.
That they have difficulty with your leadership. Why then are you contesting the presidency?
Since losing that seat, what have you been up to?
Now, Mr. Attorney General, this particular provision sounds unconstitutional. But why were there not consultations before moving forward with the proposals? Did they say what will happen when you guys get to St. Vincent? Because there are pressing social economic issues that I would want to address with you.
In the hyper-information age of social media, the Bubb Report knows there is more to the story. We have questions and demand answers. We strive to hold the powerful accountable and tell an unbiased, contextual story. You know what happened. We let you know why it happened. There is always more to the story. The Bubb Report, streaming every Sunday at 11 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube.
All right, William. William, can you hear us now? We still can't hear William. All right, so William, we'll remove you off the screen and then we'll pipe you in through WhatsApp. All right, because your voice here would be very important for this. All right, folks. So we're going to call William through WhatsApp and we'll be able to join him that way. All right, William Joseph. All right, Mr. Joseph, we definitely have to join you by way of WhatsApp, sir. So I need you to, to respond to some of the comments that Mr. Batiste was making here.
Yeah, thanks again. And I want to begin by reminding us all, of the state of the NDC, and so insofar as many of us would have reckoned. By the time that they went into convention, you had a party that was virtually on life support. The folks they had essentially run it into the ground. So you towards the beginning, towards the convention period, they issued an invitation for people to join, and a number of Grenadians, especially some younger people, accepted that invitation and went in. Now, what was really going on there? Yes, they attracted people, but I do not think that they envisaged that some of them would have been displaced. Now, so we go to the convention, and what we found there was that a number of new people were elected by the delegates. So the delegates, NDC people, seem to be saying, listen to the existing group at the time, that we are not satisfied that you have been doing well or have the ability to do well for the NDC. So we are going to hitch our wagon onto some younger people. So you have, in that context, a Deacon Mitchell emerging democratically and fairly as the new leader. Now, it's been about 60 days since that has happened. So clearly, it is going to be some time for them to sift through a number of the important issues in getting that party off the ground and in shape for general elections. Clearly, by the Prime Minister's insinuations and so on, those elections appear not to be very far off. Mm-hmm. So obviously, they would be under some pressure to get their house in order. Do they have the capacity to do so? We shall judge. But let us understand this. I have heard an announcement recently that said, listen, they are going to be naming or launching 5 candidates very shortly. So it seems to me that they are making progress in quick time.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
so So
there are some issues.
Go ahead.
Thank you. There are some issues that they are going to have to deal with. In my view, they're going to have to rebrand that party. It has gone through too much for them to continue as if it were the same old NDC of 1987, 87, and 2013 and all of that time. So they're going to have to rebrand. Now, Michael raised a number of issues that are fair issues. They fall into two categories. There are some objective issues in the country, and there are a number of subjective issues. Now, I would anticipate that any serious party, let us say in this case the NDC, is going to sift these issues, identify from that objective list those most critical issues there that they need to fashion responses to. Those responses are going to be in the form of programs and policies, which will eventually become the platform for the party and what they will message to the people. At the same time, coming out under the subjective list, there are a number of issues which are available, in my view, for propaganda work, tactical hits on the regime, for stirring the appetite of the people and so on. And they have begun some of that. They need to intensify it, in my view, and make it more broad street. So I am beginning to see some movement there. Now, quickly to the last issue in my first comment. The question of recognition and standing of the new leader. Now, people can say a lot of stuff. I judge it on the basis of the public acceptance of this young man as the leader. I have not seen this in my lifetime in politics in Grenada. That this fellow became a virtual hit from the day he was elected at the convention. I've not seen that. So something more profound is at work. And I've heard this noise about, WRB and, who he worked for and all this stuff. And in my view, people have disregarded that, and I disregard that, and are saying they are looking for substance. They are looking for leadership for their country. And so I think it will unfold. I expect that he will present a vision for Grenada, and eventually they will lay out their party platform. Now, I did say finally, but I'm sorry, last thing, St. David. You see, you have a situation, in my view, where some people have been essentially deposed, okay? And there is now some amount of grumbling and disagreement and displeasure and disaffection and so on about what has happened. Ultimately, the question is, what is it that is best for the NDC? And eventually, what is the greater good in it that is in the greater good for Grenada? Is it my own personal dreams of being an MP? Or is it something bigger and above me? So folks are going to have to reckon with these things. There are maturity issues here, there are judgment issues here. But I think eventually the thing will settle down, and people will find that there is a place in the sun for all of them, although everybody can't be in the front row. So that's my preliminary comments.
All right. Yes, William. Thank you for that. I'll get back to Mr. Batista, but we will attempt again. My producer will be in touch with you. And perhaps we might want to have you remove the headphones when you log back in on the screen to see if that would work for us. Okay? So please try and come back on. We are really trying to make some adjustments in real time here. So thank you for working with us. But Mr. Batista, I want to bring you back here, sir. Now, I'm sure you had an opportunity to hear your sparring partner there, Willie, with respect to what's happening with the NDC. And one might even argue that these are growing pains. Yes, Deacon is new. And so he's coming into an organization that historically has had issues of infighting and palace intrigue, if you will. And so what one might say that these growing pains are expected to happen in context of when you have those tensions with novelty and people who have been there before. What are your thoughts on that perspective?
But I heard Willie said something about propaganda with WRB and what have you. That's not propaganda, Willie. Now, the NDC in 1991 sold WRB, sold Greenlec for peanuts. The new NDC leader has become the lawyer for WRB and defended them in international courts. The docket number in that court was not WRB versus Kit Mitchell and Bowen. I wish it was. The docket number was WRB versus the government and people of Grenada. We cannot browse over that. One, if I did not like Willie so much, I would maybe say it's intellectual hypocrisy. Now, not long ago, we had a case here with the young kid, Olinga. Olinga was an agent, I presume he was an agent or some representative for a company called Chimera. We jump all over the kid's chest because he represented a Russian company that went bankrupt and farmers lost $175,000 or whatever and didn't pay them some money. Now, why is it now that we want to browse over Deacon Mitchell representing a foreign company against the state, but when it's Olinga, it is okay to jump on the Olinga chest and we must just browse over it? I'm saying no, that have to be discussed because the question of WRB is hurting the Grenadian people, and that is one of the reasons why cost of living has skyrocketed. Electricity bills have gone up over 35%. Now, we have yet to hear from the two sides what actually happened there. The lawyers representing WRB and the government of Grenada, they got twice time the amount in legal fees than what NDC sold the company for. NDC sold the company to WRB. NDC leader is now the lawyer for WRB. You can't help but marry the two. There's no such thing as rebranding, as you would know and the lawyers would know. When you take over a company like that, you take over the assets and the liabilities. That part of the liability that we have to discuss. Now, that issue is been sidelined, and important issues like that. How much did we pay for WRB? How much went into to WRB lawyers? How much monies the WRB got themselves? What is the bottom line for the Grenadian people? How deep in the Grenadian people's pocket they have to dip down to pay for excessive bills, electric bills, as a result of what happened in the courts? We cannot sidestep that, Willie. We have to discuss that. I heard in a program too where Deacon said his law firm does not sell passports, but he has interest in a company that sells passports. Well, obviously, we need to know the name of the company, because if you are elected prime minister, I do not want you to have a company out there that you have an interest in that selling passport that you're still associated with. So there are some questions that you have to put on the table for scrutiny. It's as simple as that. You're into politics. If you're acting as a lawyer, you could represent whoever you want. You took an oath to do so. But when you're representing a foreign company's interest against the people of Grenada, you have some explanation to do. And I think that is fair game. You heard the Prime Minister dancing around that. That would be an issue to take to the Grenadian people. And we can't get
all right. Willie, let's see. You might have to remove your headphones from your computer altogether. Maybe in that way. Yeah, we still can't hear you there, unfortunately. But definitely let us get to some comments here. Wilbur Thomas saying the excessive bills is not Deacon's fault. Batiste, you're looking more like an NNP agent than a member of the GWLP. I'm sure you would beg to disagree, Mr. Batiste. Ask NNP where they got the money to pay for. I suspect he's talking about the NNP attorneys that represented the state in the WRB matter. Deacon is not responsible for the WRB Grenlec saga. Jennifer is saying Deacon Mitchell is a lawyer. That is his profession. What is Olinga Mitchell's profession? I believe he's also a lawyer, if I'm not mistaken, right? I believe so. Rand Gabon is saying, Mike, there are more questions than answers, ostensibly agreeing with some of the points that you raised here. Let's see. Janice Bagwan is saying, Mr. Batiste asked the current leader those questions. Let's see. Alroy is saying Mitchell has a responsibility to represent their client to the best of their ability. I believe he's speaking of Deacon here. And he's saying you need to ask Keith those questions. Mr. Batiste, what say you to some of these comments?
You see, it's a double standard that we play in Grenada politics. With Olinga, it was wrong for Olinga to represent Chimera. And I heard the person talking about me being an NNP agent. Well, I am more opposed to NNP than either one of you because I was arrested and went to jail for 10 days in solitary confinement as a threat to national security after I ran under the NNP. And
I believe you were also sued by the member of parliament for
in the case that was fixed against me. I'm the only politician who contested an elections in handcuffs. And after the elections, all the charges disappeared. So no one is telling me about NNP. I hold no briefs for the NNP. I hold no briefs for NDC. But we have a situation here where Deacon Mitchell represented a foreign company against the state. That is a question that has to be discussed. We have an issue here where Deacon Mitchell in the CBI program, and we have to talk about the CBI because you know what? You know the hypocrisy there? Anytime there's a problem with economic citizenship running afoul of the law, we talk about government. We blame government, yes, and we have to blame the government. We never talk about who are the agents selling this passport to some of these groups and who are helping them to circumvent the process to get a passport. Now, we have two major issues that we have to put on the table that calls for ventilation. We heard from the new National Party, they're saying that electric bills will be with us till 2030. That's a long time. People are suffering. Cost of living has skyrocketed. Salaries are not going up. People are having difficulties making ends meet because of the huge costs associated with Grenada once again getting control of WRB. We cannot sweep that under the rug. Don't tell me he's a lawyer. Of course, he took an oath to defend his clients or criminals or whoever. He took an oath. He didn't take an oath to be the Prime Minister of Grenada. So if you are going into the courts, and when on the docket number it said WRB versus the government and people of Grenada, there were two lawyers, two opposite lawyers was presented in that case. WRB lawyers represented WRB, and there was another set of lawyers representing Grenada. Grenada lost. As a result of that, $63 million went to WRB. Another $10 million US went to the losing lawyers for Grenada. That is $73 million US that the people of Grenada are paying for second-hand generators again. We can't sweep that under the rug. We have to hear from both sides. We must know what's happening there. How could you jump on one side when it's Olinga Mitchell, and when it's Deacon Mitchell, you want to canonize him, you want to make him a saint. You don't work like that.
Okay, Mr. Batista, so some very salient points made here. Willie, we're going to do this again. We'll play some phone tag. I'm going to call you to get you to to respond there. And unfortunately, that's how we have to do it in terms of the quality of the production today. And that is something I don't like, but that's just the reality of things sometimes. So let's get Willie on the line here. Willie?
Yes, I'm with you again.
Yes.
Yeah, I have heard Michael, and I don't know that the WRB's lawyers at the International Court for the Settlement of Investment Disputes, the lawyers in that particular venue was in fact Deacon Mitchell. I doubt it. I doubt it. Nevertheless, I am hearing a noise that's saying it's taken us from relitigating the sale of Grenada back in 1994 to, and of course the agreement that was reached at that time,
91,
to the issues that led to the actions of the NNP regime that triggered WRB to take the matter to court. The courts to see that the NDC as such prosecuted that issue. I don't recall that. I know other people did, but really and truly I don't know this issue of Olinga, if that is his name, and representing, or I don't know that as a big ticket issue at all. I really don't know. CBI. No, CBI is a major economic policy issue. There is legislation setting up that entire thing and provides for agents and so on, and the state gives licenses to these agents to transact business with these people who are interested in the passports, Grenadian passports. So, and the government of Grenada receives considerable revenue. In fact, the other day I saw a notice saying that in the region of $150 million came into the government's coffers in the last year under the CBI program. What is done with that money is a different issue.
Mm-hmm.
So the question of who is selling, who are agents responsible for the paperwork with applicants for citizenship and so on, I don't know that is a major political issue that a party has to account for. The issue is what law the parliament has put in place. If that law is defective in some ways, then amendments ought to be promoted and so on to get these to be remedied. But I really don't know how to put my mind on what is being said regarding that beyond what I've just said. So there we are. So back to the point I made about rebranding is this: every organization is free to rebrand itself. Any political party that has been stigmatized, which is the case of the NDC, given over the last several election cycles in particular, and given the fact that it has now put in place at its convention essentially a new group, a new breed of people, that organization is entitled to rebrand itself. It continues to be the NDC, but it ought to make an assessment as to what it wants to be known for in Grenada at this time, and it ought to differentiate itself from the NNP, which, as we know, is what I would call a provider brand in the politics. And it also has a duty, I would say, this new breed of NDC leaders to shift the NDC to a new platform and to get out of this old stigmatized NDC about they couldn't pay salaries and this and that and the other. So in the same way that people supporting the NNP don't want to hear about briefcase anymore, the NDC is entitled to say, listen, I'm going to rebrand because we are not taking, the present NDC cannot be called upon to take responsibility for the failure to pay salaries on 2 occasions back in 2012. So I don't know, let us raise the bar on what we are discussing. Unfortunately, I can't engage my brother and friend, emotionally on these things because I am hearing things that, I don't know and personally I don't bother about.
All right.
So those are my comments at this stage.
Yes, and William, I would want to give you the opportunity. We will definitely have to end the program early because I'm not happy with the quality of the stream today. That's not my standard at all. Again, these are issues beyond our control. But I want to give you the opportunity to really give us some closing comments. Do you anticipate, for example, that the Prime Minister will be calling an early election?
early in the sense that I think he's going to call it before it is constitutionally due in 2023, so that sometime during the course of this year, I think we are going to have the elections.
Okay, so you're saying in the course of this year, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter?
I would say during the first half, before the end of the first half of the year.
Mhm.
That's my reading of it.
Okay. So what? Just some final comments from you, Mr. Joseph, in terms of what we can anticipate the political dynamics looking like as we go into a general election in Grenada. What do you foresee the political landscape looking like? Final question.
Yeah. Well, clearly, by the time the elections are called, both parties are going to have full slates of candidates, so that won't be an issue. It's going to come down to a couple of things. What is the response, that is to say, the offering of the two parties on the major objective issues of the day? So we are talking about the programs and policies that they are going to put forward. But listen, elections are very, very emotional and psychological, and issues of mood and tone and so on. So there is going to be that aspect to it. On the propaganda side, on the tactical hits and so on that they will seek to make, we are going to get some of that and more. And I expect a lot of propaganda in the upcoming period. Now, the second point I would make has to do with the succession issue within the NNP. Because it has been announced, and the Prime Minister has expressed himself twice publicly on this issue already. So in doing so, it is already clear to me that the Prime Minister, being leader of the NNP, has declared, listen, I own this party. So essentially the criteria for finding a successor are largely going to be determined by me. No, so that's one thing. The other thing is this, and I think this is the more troublesome aspect. If you are telling the people that I will lead my party into the elections, and then thereafter, a year, maybe 18 months after, I will hand over to somebody else, there is an issue inside of there, because when we go to the polls, we do not go to the polls to elect a temporary leader. And that is essentially what it will boil down to. We don't go to appoint a temporary leader, and the electorate at the general elections have no concern about the NNP and its internal issues of appointing a political leader for that party. They have the responsibility to decide whether they are going to fix their business of appointing a political leader before the elections, or whether they are going to offer us a temporary leader, in which case the electorate would have some significancy regarding what that would be. And therefore, I envisage that we're going to be in a period in terms of NNP politics, a period of uncertainty and instability inside the NNP as they try to deal with this whole question of a successor to Keith Mitchell. So it's going to be very interesting. On the other side with the NDC, well, the slate has been clean. Deacon Mitchell and his new outfit need to populate that slate now with policies that make sense. And those areas were identified very well by Michael. A number of those areas. That is, but of course, excluding WRB and so on, I don't buy that. But poverty and unemployment and so on, yes. What are the responses to those things? What are they going to be saying to young people? What are they going to be saying to the working class? Because an NDC victory, in my view, is going to have to go through. The path to victory for the NDC is have to go through the working class of Grenada. So the programs are going to become very critical. So that's, I could say a lot more, but let me end at that point.
Absolutely, Mr. Joseph. Thank you again. We had some difficulties with the stream today. I do apologize for that. But certainly we would be having you back on the program for several more iterations of this kind of format because we believe that your perspective is extremely valuable. So thank you again, Mr. Joseph.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
All right, Mr. Batiste. Now I will get back to you, sir. And you've heard Willie there. How do you respond to some of the comments that he just made?
The comments he made about succession, I think, is one that that we have to look at seriously. It becomes a crisis. Earlier, in my opening remarks, I told you that the country is in a crisis: political, economical. Grenadians should see 4 people or 6 people as the leader, deputy leader, going into a general election, The NDC have the same problem. The leader has pushed out the deputy from a constituency that he was shadowing, and from all intent and purposes, we can say that he won't be contesting an election. We can safely say so. So it is not just NDC, NNP that have that problem. The NDC have a problem as well. The incumbent, yes, they're in office and they have the benefit of the incumbency. But when you're challenging an incumbent, you have to do a lot better than he's doing. Who is the deputy? Who is the NDC deputy? Deputy political leader.
Adrian Thomas remains a deputy, though.
Yeah, sure, but the deputy political leader, that position is clothing that you bestowed upon a candidate to make him more viable in a constituency, not just to the constituency, but to the nation as a whole. He comes as the number 1 man in the team. You say that Deacon and Tom Jones and what have you. So the question remains: Are you gonna go into another convention and elect a deputy that's gonna contest, or would you have a deputy that's sitting on the sideline and not contesting? So those are some of the issues that have to be addressed. So it's not just in a crisis. Both parties in a crisis.
Okay, but let us talk about your party. Is your party in a crisis, Mr. Batista? You have Mr.
It's in a deep crisis.
The GULP is in deep crisis. I mean, some might say that the GULP is actually laying to rest peacefully in the St. George's Center Cemetery.
Some may say so.
Yeah, but of course,
I mean, the Labour Party was born out of the cry of a people crying out for social and economic justice. It was not about a man, but unfortunately, we had a flamboyant leader who led that cause and who the people adore, and he was seen as the face and claim ownership to that party. But the things that the party represent: better housing, affordable and better housing, lower cost of living, lands for the landless, technical and vocational education for young people, healthcare, and of course, giving Grenada Grenadian lands. He can't die with that. He can't die with that.
And those are universal principles, but I'm talking now of the current iteration of the organization. You appear to have a Prudhomme faction and a Batiste faction. What is going on there?
We are all children of Labour. We are children of Labour, and in due course, that will be regularized, and we won't do any bloodletting publicly. Mr. Prudhomme,
so
wait a minute.
Yes.
All the positions in the GLP are open and vacant. You have president, vice president, deputy, 2 deputy leaders. There's no need for anybody to be fighting for any positions.
Okay.
In due course, you would see children of Labour coming together and adding the GLP voice to the national conversation. It may not be successful in terms of winning the elections, but our voices have to be heard, and we will be in position where we could determine who wins.
All right, Mr. Batista, I'll give you some opportunities here. And again, the invitation is open to yourself and Mr. Prudhomme. I did invite him on the program before, but certainly I want the both of you to have a coming together on the Bubb Report, if you will, a breaking of bread, if you will.
I will convey that to Jeff, and I'm sure Jeff would accept the invitation, and we can appear on your report and articulate the position of the Grenada United Labour Party. And earlier on, I heard you with a video clip and I thought that it was rather unfortunate calling on Sir Gary a dictator. A man who gave the country.
Well, I didn't call him a dictator. It was a reporter.
No, that's a reporter. I said a clip.
Yes,
It's a video clip, recorded video clip, file clip, calling him a dictator. And I think that is unfortunate. A man who gave the country a constitution that only the people could change. Only the people can change that. Successive governments tried to change it and they couldn't. That man can't be a dictator. A dictator is one who go to sleep at night, he gets up in the morning and he changes around the laws. Not so with a constitution. He put public workers on the board on the public workers union. That was given to the lands. They were given to them by Uncle Gary. The Public Service Commission, where a worker is sitting at the table where decisions are made affecting their lives. You can't call that man a dictator. A man who gave workers a pension and a gratuity, who made it legislation and install it in the Constitution so that successive governments just can't change it as they wish, which they tried to do several times. You can't call that man a dictator at all. A man who created a pension scheme called the Providence Fund, which later Morris Bishop changed, renamed NIS. And this was a fund to look after people in the golden years. How could you ever call a man like that a dictator? I think sometimes we have to go back and correct the record. That was probably one of the most democratic leader that we had in Grenada in quite a long time.
But Mr. Batista, I'm sure the New Jewel movement sympathizers and those who were threatened by the Mongoose gang would have a different view of Sir Eric's governance. But that would require I mean, some might say that was dictatorial.
That's not GLP. Just like the PRA was not the government. A lot of wrong things happening on all sides.
Right.
Sometimes we highlight the wrong things or the bad things of a person and we leave out all the other things. Look at all the good things that the GLP have done. A constitution that nobody's could change, pension and gratuity, land for the landless, SGU. SGU today is the second largest employer in the state of Grenada. No other party in Grenada even come close to that. Look around today. Grenada have the most landowners in the Caribbean per capita. And why that's so? Because the ordinary people who gave their blood, sweat, and tears in toiling on the estates, they couldn't buy lands today. He gave them lands. So lots of Grenadians own lands today as a result of Sir Eric Gary and the GLP. Today we are giving lands to foreigners as opposed to giving lands to ordinary people. And what they tell them, pay as you earn. So this is a party with a rich history. Yes, it was dominated over the years by Sir Eric Gary, his death. The party went into turmoil and so on. But we cannot allow that party with a rich history to die just so.
All right. Well, yes, Mr. Batista. So again, we will be watching this space again, as I said. And I notice you wearing white today in the spirit of not letting your leader fall. But I digress there. But I'll give you an opportunity for some final comments, sir, before we close the program today.
Well, I want to say to the Grenadian people, as we approach 48 years of independence, our situation today is far worse than it was in 1951 when Sir Eric Gary heard the cries of the people and invited himself into the feelings. Our country is in a crisis. We are facing a pandemic where lots of people have lost their lives, including elderly citizens. We face high unemployment, low worker moral, uncertainty in the pension scheme. We face high cost of living, runaway inflation, people working for very starvation wages, hopelessness among our young people. Never in the history of Grenada have we seen so many young people committing suicide as we've seen today. Things are bad. We are in a crisis. And I think what we need now is to give the people on the bottom of the ladder, give them some hope. Give the workers some hope. Prices are rising. The salaries are remaining the same. How do we get agriculture moving? How we get the rural economy moving? How we have better health care? Because we are not discussing that. We are into a pandemic. We are not hearing no parties talking about how
And I think we lost Mr. Batiste there. So we will await his return. Mr. Batiste, there you are. We can go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. We can hear you. I don't think. All right, folks. No, this is it. We have to end the program. We're definitely having some technical glitches today, which I'm not very happy about. But those are things that are out of my control. On behalf of the producers of the Bubb Report, I wish to thank all of you for your spirited comments and participation today. As a reminder, the Bubb Report will now be streamed on WPG10 on Sundays at 8 p.m. So please note that programming note. We're also on GBN on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. for those of you who missed the live show on Sunday. We're also on the GoToFed platform as well. On behalf of the producers of the Bubb Report, I wish to thank you for yet another spirited program, and we will see you next week for what promises to be a bumper show. Thank you again, and have a safe and pleasant week. Bye-bye.